Prezi. So, welcome to Ukie. This is the, we like to see this as your home. It's the home of the games industry. For any of you who don't know what the deal is, when you join, this is your office. You get to use this for free. And members like Marmalade get to put on events like this so that they can give stuff back to you and talk to you for free. So it's awesome to have you here. And it's great to see the speakers and line up and the topics. I think we are at a really important time as a games industry. We've had a lot of interesting things happen in the last 2 years. I've been in this job for almost 3 years. I joined in January 2012, and we had a couple of things that hit us immediately, and I had to hit the ground running. And it's been the most interesting, most exciting, most fulfilling 3 years of my life. If you don't know Ukie, when I was approached about this job, I thought, why the flip would I go to a trade association? That sounds really boring. A trade association is really quite an objective body, I like to see it. Yes, it's a membership organisation, but we like to see ourselves as very inclusive. And we represent the interests of the whole industry, because we are at a really critical point in time. And you need that sort of powerful collective, or at least the representative of the collective voice, to stop stupid things happen and make good things happen. Because whether we realise it or not, stupid things do sometimes rear their ugly head and potentially threaten the way that we do business and our art, really. We've got about 240 members now. It's all companies. Most of our members are developers. We used to be a publisher association. That distinction is just completely sort of mixed up now, and everyone's a developer, everyone's a publisher, whatever. And we represent people in between as well. So people who are supporting making middleware, engines, or PR companies. So everyone who's in the family of the games industry. So we're very open. We're not for profit. That's all the boring stuff, right? The kinds of things that we do. Again, you know, when we think of a trade association, we think of an industry that's in such rapid transition, with such diversity within it. And by diversity, I mean not gender diversity yet, looking around the room, sorry. But I mean from mobile developers and 1, 2, 3 people studios to still 300-400 studios, rare as they are in the UK, and major multinational publishers, and then new kinds of publishers. That's the diversity of the industry we're talking about. It's really diverse. And there are other sectors that have similar diversity, but we're also, as I said, unlike any other sector, I think, going through the most rapid time of innovation and change. And that's awesome. You know, we innovate in so many different ways as an industry, whether that be through technology, through the experiences, through the tools we use, through business models. We innovate like nobody else, and that presents some challenges. So this is the kind of really, we're not designers. If anyone wants to have a go at doing an infographic for us, we really welcome that. We try to sort of represent the kinds of things that we do, and we want to be a very active trade association acting on your behalf and actually help you tangibly, because particularly when you're a small company or an indie developer, there's lots of practical stuff that you need support with, and sometimes you don't have the resource or the bandwidth because you're bloody making the game. So we try and make introductions, connect you with people who can help you in a business or guide you. We give discounts, but we also, most importantly, play the political game, and that's where, again, whether people kind of realise it or not, yes, we've had the tax breaks come through, but there's an awful lot of other stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and our job is to stop stupid stuff happening, make good stuff happen. So, two things that have significantly happened, changed the nature of our industry, potentially for the better, were in the last 3 years. So, of course, the tax breaks lobby had been going for many years, and it involved lots of people, and Tiger really was driving that a lot. And, you know, when I started, you know, we obviously had this transition time with government when the tax breaks sort of fell through the gaps again, and then it was back on the agenda. And times had changed, and really everyone saw the sense of having these tax breaks for the games industry. So that was a really hard fight, actually, because in the last 2 years, we then had to go under, of course, everyone knows they were delayed, we had to go under a full investigation with the European Union, and that's because it qualifies as state aid, and because we're a member of the European Union, it has to go through a sort of rigorous process. It can't be seen to be propping up a failing industry, this kind of money. So we had to prove that this tax break was needed on cultural grounds. And we had to actually argue to these commissioners who think that making a game is just like this, and that's all you do. And it doesn't matter who makes a game or where you are, and that anyone can make a game. Well, yes, lots of people can make games, and the barriers to entry are lower because of great tools and technology. But it really matters that we're a British industry. You don't have to be British. We are in Britain. We are living in the society we've created. And all those influences influence how we shape the code and how we shape the games that we make and the products that we make. And so we really had to prove that point on a cultural basis. And we did that, and that was great. And there was a lot of people involved in that. Then, of course, we had prizes for being able to translate this binary. No one has yet. It's not very hard. We, at Ukie, fully funded what was called the Next Gen Skills campaign, which really was spearheaded by Ian Livingston, the poster child of the industry. And he really was very passionate about getting programming and securing a pipeline of talent for our future. Because it's all very well that we have tax breaks and we have a wonderful environment, we have loads of people making games, but if we don't have people who know how to actually program or actually be code literate or understand computational thinking and the fundamental principles that underlie that, then we haven't got a future. So it was really critically important that we got programming instead of people learning how to read spreadsheets. Sorry, Microsoft. Back onto the curriculum, especially at an early age. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to follow that up in a minute. Anyone translated the binary yet?
Thank you.
Yay! I did have like a long sort of sentence and then realised it was filling the full page. So part of that work, I haven't got one with... Sorry, thank you. Yes, I said thank you. Part of that work is obviously, now that we've got those two big things that happened in the last 2 years, coding back onto the curriculum and tax breaks for the industry, at the beginning of this year, we sort of thought, right, what next? We can't just sit here, you know, that's not job done. That's basically alpha stage. There's lots of other bits of the jigsaw that need to be fit in. So we went out, talked to our membership, talked to the sector. We obviously are, you know, we live and breathe this industry, and we have to be across so many different aspects of the industry. So we went and we talked to people, and we came up with this kind of framework, which we call the manifesto. And I'll go through a little bit of what we're asking for now, because the political game doesn't stop now that we've got tax breaks. And this is Justin Tomlinson, who was at our Westminster reception where we launched this in September. He's amazing. He actually plays games. He loves games. And he's an MP who's going to be really interesting and supportive, along with Ed Vasey. But as you know, we're going into general election time. So, you know, it could all change. What if we don't have Ed Vasey? What if we don't have Justin Tomlinson? What if we don't have any of these people anymore? Okay, they're Tories. You know, what if we don't have these supportive ministers or supportive MPs fighting our case and understanding that games and the games sector is an important cultural and economic powerhouse? And really, we think the game sector is a blueprint for the digital economy. So everything we ask for affects other sectors. So what if we don't? So we've got to now start as a sector really pulling together and start to say, you know what, okay, this is what we think we need now or don't need, you know, to actually thrive going forwards and to make the most of tax breaks. So we like to say, you know, our main aim is to make the UK the best place to make and sell games. But what we do, how we do that, is about supporting and promoting and growing the industry and the people within it and the companies within it. And, you know, we really want to help grow that creativity and innovation and the ability for you to do business and do what you love doing. Because at the end of the day, it is good for the economy. You know, it provides people jobs. And who doesn't want to actually make a living, you know, to be able to live, just live, not have a Ferrari, just live by making games. But some people want to have bigger ambitions, which is great. So the first area that we're now looking at, access to finance, particularly for small companies in the creative sector, of which we are. You know, we're interesting actually because as a sector, we're creative in content, but we're also technology and innovation, and we sit at the middle. So oftentimes, tech city people kind of ignore games, and then film and TV people ignore games. Well, they don't ignore them; they just don't understand them because we sit here. So access to finance has always been a perennial issue for a lot of people. It's all very well having the tax breaks, but that's, to give you 20% back on 80% of your core costs. We've got guides about this, by the way, if you still haven't got your head around tax breaks. But it gives you essentially money back on the cost that you've incurred in developing your game from the 1st of April 2014. So you can claim that money back. You get cash back from the tax man, believe it or not. But that's when you've got to the stage where you can actually make the game. What about the access to financing before that stage? VCs aren't necessarily interested because they're interested in big multi-million-pound deals. So you look at angel investment, or you look at other kinds of deals with publishers. You look at all sorts of different ways to be able to get to that point at which you can then start to make the game and actually start to claim back on your tax credit. Banks do not lend at the moment to any creative industries, not just games industry. Has anyone managed to get a bank loan for their business? Yay!
Believe it or not.
Be interesting to see how you manage to do that. Crowdfunding helps because if you can say, look, I've got 100,000 people who pre-ordered my game or at least are interested, this is going to make money back, then, that's evidence to take to the bank. But generally, there's a problem with banks, and there's a lot of work happening around banks, and there's some new, interesting banks that are going to be emerging in the next few months and couple of years that are focused on creative industries, because it's not just a problem that is, our problem. We also need better infrastructure. Broadband is always this perennial issue. Ed Vaizey likes to say he's also Minister for Broadband. It's part of his responsibility. But, frankly, if you want to have a distributed workforce, if you want your team, a development team, to actually be able to work remotely, you need to have good broadband. Our files are heavy shit. We also, again, the business as usual stuff is about preventing unnecessary regulations. So what that means is no new laws. We're already governed by existing laws that govern lots of different industries. So, for example, remember the OFT investigation in that purchasing that happened last year, which was something we worked with them for the whole year. That actually was about existing laws, about consumer protection and how you sell shit to people. And this wasn't, again, just something that was a new thing just because we're games. This was about existing regulation. And what we didn't want was just new laws brought in for games or because of games. So we had to make sure that that wasn't on the agenda.
Sorry,
It's all right. Let's dance. Hold music. and the kinds of things that we've been working in terms of that sort of breaking down barriers to business and preventing stupid shit happening that will get in the way of you doing business, and new laws that are unnecessary, because sometimes laws are necessary, through all these kinds of different groups, including BAFTA, by the way. But we're on, all these government groups, these kind of industry groups, like the Creative Industries Council working groups on access to finance, IP, skills, infrastructure. This takes up a lot of our time, which is why I have a team of 11 people who help us and act on your behalf. But what's important is that you can tell us how you want to be represented through these groups. So it's very important. That's a very important conduit and channel through which what we want as a sector or don't want as a sector is communicated. The other big area that we think really needs some work is about data. Data is so important to everybody. For developers, it's critical. And now we are in an age where we have real-time data, we have analytics, we have so much data at our disposal, and we can use that really cleverly. But as a sector, we don't have data about who we are, where we are, what the patterns of growth are, how innovation happens, where innovation happens. We don't even have digital charts, for God's sake. We don't even have data on digital sales. This is an issue because people from the outside, and especially investors, look at the industry and go, well, look, it's a declining industry. Well, what do you mean? No, it's not. That's because we only actually have data on physical products, which is still going to be a business. But it is, we know that there's this huge explosion in digital, in mobile, and other ways, other platforms, and other ways of monetizing our games. We need data on that. What we did was this year we worked with Nesta on this because sometimes when government puts out official figures about the industry, they use something called sick codes, and they are sick in the bad way, not in the 90s teenager way. They are standard industrial codes which classify the sector and the company when you do your VAT return. It's very boring, but it's quite important because these are the codes. We don't have a code that suits the video games industry. Again, we fall between two different codes. Some companies, when we've done an analysis, because you can look at companies' house data, I can look at all your accounts, you can look at ours. Some companies, big games companies, were classified as leisure, activity, and other services. Does that say games to you? No. So sometimes the government official figures, which are really important because that's what they base, interventions on. They say, well, should we do this or shouldn't we do this? Well, how big is the industry? How important is it? It's shit. The figures are shit. So if we were in Silicon Valley or somewhere cool like that, again, 2000 reference there, we would have a real-time database that was self-serving, self-updating, and we'd have this real-time analytics about who we are, what we are. Companies who don't, whose turnover is less than £79,000 a year, and let's face it, that's quite a lot of companies, don't even get counted. They don't even get a SIP code. And we know that there's lots of these fledgling, really early startup companies that need to be counted. So we worked with Nesta to come up with this sort of methodology that was a combination of using various different sources and databases, but also a web scraping tool. And, the government's estimate for gross value added, which is their language, actually for their GDP estimate, is last year, and they said the games industry was worth about half a billion. That's not really, we think, realistic. We, through this methodology, think it's worth as much to the economy as 1.7 billion, which is a hell of a lot bigger. We also know already that we are the largest games development community in Europe. But we also found, and again, we know this, but it's good to have the evidence. We know that we're not really we're not so London-centric as other industries. We have a real spread of real expertise across the country, and that is important, and that should remain. Why the hell should you have to come to London to make games? Rubbish. So we saw that there's 12 key clusters across the UK, and actually, if you want to actually look at the report, I can send you the links all online. But it's really interesting to see, and it kind of reinforces what we know already. So places like Leamington, Guildford, Brighton, Bristol, Dundee, Liverpool, we already know that these are key clusters, but this reinforced it, and it's always good to have that evidence. But what was really interesting, and again, we sort of know this, 90% of games companies were created after 2000. The growth of new companies is 15 times faster than the UK economy overall. And there's around about 1,900 games companies in the UK. That's a shit ton, and also more than we thought. And this is important because we can then use this as a tool for investors to prove the point that we are worth investing in, but also for policymakers, particularly at a local level. So we can speak to your local councils and say, give these people some free office space, please. So there's been a huge entrepreneurial explosion. And of course, it's because of the platforms, and particularly mobile and smartphones and smart devices like tablets. The overwhelming majority of new companies and companies now who are in the games industry are mobile developers. If you go and speak to Asia and Chinese companies, to Korean companies, we had a whole Chinese delegation here of 12 companies that we hosted, and we brought in companies to meet with them one-to-one. They think that we are all about console. They think that the UK games industry development expertise is in console. Yes, we have that because that's our heritage. But we are also mobile developers. They have no idea. All they're looking for is mobile developers. So that's an important message to be able to say, to sell to the rest of the world, look, we have this expertise. And it was shocking to hear. Now, they also said, yeah, you see, it's really interesting. It's been really interesting, Joe, because we also thought that UK was all about manufacturing. Since when? Oh, my God. If only. Digital manufacturing, that's what we like to call the games industry. So the other area that we're really focused in on, and we do this anyway, is about building knowledge. And Harvey talked about this at the beginning. building knowledge, sharing knowledge. We are such a collaborative sector. I've worked as a multi platform, interactive, digital. I've always had those in my stupid job title, which really annoyed the hell out of me because as far as I was concerned, it was just content and experiences. Get over yourselves. You know, sorry, this is talking to the BBC, not you. I was at the BBC, I was at Channel 4, and, you know, they're so closed shop. You know, they're not the same kinds of sectors as the games industry. Games industry want to help each other, and I think that's because you know, games are fundamentally based in programming and coding, and we need to learn. We're learning all the time, and we're learning new languages and tools all the time. So we need to be able to support these clusters that we've identified already locally and help kind of feed those clusters in whatever way we can. We also need to help those clusters and small businesses in particular build business resilience. You know, our industry is like this, and we're so, you know, because we're fast transitioning, you know, even within the industry it's hard to keep up. I have sympathy, or empathy rather, for people outside the industry who are looking in, again, trying to understand it. We change so much, and it is up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And businesses go out of business, which we still see as failure. And that's wrong. We should see that as learning. And, you know, when failure happens, you're learning. You're learning all the time. That's the kind of attitude that doesn't really exist within the UK, I think. Failure is fine. Failure is learning. Games are really good at that. I fail all the time at levels, and I learn. I learn not to play them anymore. And we need to educate the investors. We need to help them understand where the value of games lie. You know, whether that's in the data, the community that we have around our game that are going to come back and back and back, whether that be title after title after title, or for more content, more features, and more iterations of that game. Games as a service is a really, really important model that investors really don't understand as well as they should. So we do a lot of work locally. So we work with local clusters. We want to do more of this, but we are a small team. When I say there's 11 of us, there's about 4 or 5 of them who are working on specific projects or part-time or work remotely. So working with clusters in partnership is the way we like to work, and we've done quite a lot with the likes of Arch Creatives, and we still do a lot with, we try and do stuff with Brian Baglow in Scotland. But Bristol Games Hub, there are lots of these clusters or co-working spaces that are specifically dedicated to games popping up all over the place. And we want to help feed that. We're here to serve you. If there's an event, so we did a tax break tour, we're going to get T-shirts with all the tour dates because, you know, we went to about 16 different places across the country to hold sessions like this where we had a panel, and this isn't the start of a joke, a lawyer, an accountant, and the BFI certification unit head, Anna Mancy, and they're all lovely. They're all fantastic. We took them around the country, and you know, we did the same session, and we want to replicate that model. So if you're in a co-working space or you're in a cluster outside of London, please let us know how we can help. We did Liverpool. You know, an example of this was the Liverpool Business Festival, which happened for the first time. This was a big government-backed thing, and it happened for the first time this year. And it was a very small-scale thing. But, you know, Liverpool isn't very good at shouting about Liverpool, I've realised. You know, I don't know if it's a Liverpool thing. Anyone from Liverpool? No. There's like about 30 games companies in Liverpool. Of course, we know Liverpool's history in games, and we know the footprint there. So it's no surprise. But actually, they're all clustered anyway because they've got this fabulous office, sort of the Baltic Triangle, I think it's called. And this was Phil Gaskell who you know, demoed some of the games. We had a little expo as part of the business festival. We had some seminars and so on. And we had Ed Vasey come up and visit and speak, and he was really impressed, you know. And again, that's a real centre of you know, clustering of innovation and talent. How can we help them more? We love doing things like this. We also love doing more practical things. This year we started doing some training courses because we realised, as someone who runs an organisation who's never bloody run a company in my life, by the way, so in the last 3 years I've gone through a massive learning curve. When you've got a training, well, no, sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm supposed to have a training budget, and my staff are supposed to go on training. And I've been on like 2 training courses, you know, and luckily I worked for a big anonymous organisation like BBC, and they were shit. And they cost a fortune, but I didn't care because, you know, I had a whole finance department. It was BBC. Well, I did care. It's BBC. It's public money. At Channel 4, I didn't care. You know, and it's really difficult when I'm looking at training courses and trying to make sure that my team go on training to make sure they're always keeping skilled up. I've no idea if this course is going to be at £700, £600, £700, if that's actually going to be relevant and useful for them. So what we've done is we asked, again, the sector, asked the membership, and said, what training requirements do you have? And we worked with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, who had this digital marketing course, because marketing came out, discoverability came out as one of the top requirements. And we worked with them and a small group of members to shape that course and bespoke it to the games industry. So we've now got an introduction to digital marketing and an advanced digital marketing. And we've also got a project management one. And we're offering these kinds of courses with thanks to Creative Skill Set, which is a government pot of money through the Skills Investment Fund, which, by the way, is going to run out in April. We were hoping yesterday, with the autumn statement, we had written to Chancellor and been lobbying Chancellor for that to continue. It's going to run out in April. That's an issue, by the way, so we'll try and work on that. But that funding is there for the industry to use to upskill people, to do training and so on, to match fund it, to take on graduates, to pay 50% of their salary, interns, anything, okay? It's well worth using now before the end of March. So we used it, we dipped into this so that we could then offer this at, instead of £550, which this course would normally cost, it costs £150. I feel like I'm a door-to-door salesman right now. I'm not meaning to sell, I'm just proving the point that, A, we're here to bespoke things and make things relevant for you and useful where you need it, but also using pots of money like that to make sure that we can actually give people a good deal and use it. We also, now this is behind the membership wall, but we first thing I asked, when I was, again, approached about this job, I asked a few people that I used to work with, like Preloaded, and I said, why are you a member of PACT, which is the TV trade association? And they said, you know, to be honest, the main thing is they do these standard contract templates. And I was like, oh, what's that? It's taken me 3 years to get these done, but they're finally here. So again, when I started this job, I used to Google NDAs. I'm like, I'm not paying for a fucking lawyer. I'm not gonna, you know, and I'd Google these documents and copy and paste them and sort of go, shit. You know, it's just like, and then eventually I'd have to go and get some legal advice. NDAs were okay, but, you know, we worked with, we've got loads of members who are legal firms, and by the way, Ukie members get an hour free legal advice with them. So we've got about 5 of them, so that means 5 hours. So we went to some of our members, and the lawyers actually did these for us. So we know that they are, they're not just stuff that you Google, but they're also then a template that you can use. So all sorts of different kind of contract, and thanks to Ella Romanos, who heads up our developer group, for taking care of that. And, you know, then we have all this free shit, you know, because, again, sometimes some of these issues like tax breaks and termships, all this kind of stuff that happens, you can find out information about them online, but sometimes it's written in language that's completely bloody alien and impenetrable. And we like to be able to then translate that and make it easy to understand for us, but for you as well, and for the whole sector. So please go and have a look at them and tell us if you need any kind of need-to-know fact sheets, guides, anything like that. Please let us know. We're just about to release this Access to Finance one, which we're updating from 2012. And that's important as well. A single place to say, you know, what kind of funding can I access? What are my options? Finally, I've got 4 minutes left. So finally, well, not quite finally, penultimately, I think one of the most important things that we need to do, and one thing that I've always been very passionate about, and again at the BBC, I banged my head against a brick wall for 9 years. I was Entertainment Multi-Platform Commissioner, yet I was not allowed to commission games. If games aren't entertainment, what are they? Well, they're also cultural, and they can be public service. And when I went to Channel 4, luckily, our £4 million budget was spent purely on commissioning games. And we commissioned a hell of a lot of really good shit because they were public service content. We were in education, they weren't educational games, they were just good games. And I think there is this, part of this access to finance hole now needs to be filled with other kinds of routes to public support. other sectors, like the film sector, like the TV sector, get this kind of funding. They're recognised as legitimate part of culture and art and worthy of support in terms of the content that they're making. It's about time we took our place at that cultural top table. I bloody love this image. If we look at our sophisticated analysis of the kinds of money that go into, so from different pots like Creative Europe, BFI, Creative England and Arts Council, the amount allocated to games is paltry. I mean paltry. If we are really to take advantage of the tax breaks on cultural grounds, we need to be considered as part and parcel and part worthy of support from these cultural institutions. So that is one of the things that we are going to focus on. You're going to hear, there's a fireside chat. I'm sorry we didn't put the fireside up, but we're going to have a fireside chat later today about, oh no we're not. That's the other session I'm doing this afternoon, sorry. It'd be nice to have a fireside chat at some point about Asia markets. We are very focused on taking innovation that we have in this country to the rest of the world. If we look at the Asian marketplace, which I referenced earlier, around games and mobile games in particular, it's all free to play and it's all Android. And it's really interesting speaking to them and finding out what they are looking for. And the internet population and the smartphone population, as we know, in Asia is gigantic. And the opportunity there to have your games discovered there, as opposed to just focusing in on the iOS and the App Store, is huge. And we are very focused on this real push for international trade, which the government is pushing. These are the targets that the government, and we sit on this working group, have set to the creative industries as a whole. Now, what's interesting is that as game developers, we export all the time. Most of our audiences for our games, most of our players are overseas. So does that count as an export? Probably. But what's really showing is that these definitions around exports and trade, and it's all really weird. And we, again, are pushing at that door and those boundaries and sort of saying, this doesn't work for us. What does this mean? What do these words mean? What does these targets mean? So we're really going to be helping companies like you, whatever size you are, to get to these international marketplaces and to do the deals that you need to do. As you probably know, we already were the UKTI partner for Gamescom GDC in San Francisco and Game Connection. This was our Gamescom stand. We're very proud of our Gamescom stand, which is always held together with sticky tape. You may have noticed these images, the big rolly banners. This is a multi-million-pound number 10 marketing campaign about creative industries. These posters appear in magazines, on tube stations, all over the world. And about a year ago, we were like, oh, so where's the games images? And they're like, oh, yeah. So we said, look, you need some bloody games images in there. We have the biggest, fastest selling entertainment products that beat film and music and TV, probably. You don't even have games images in this multi-million-pound campaign. So we secured these images, and this is just the start. So these are now used everywhere all over the world to promote our sector. Finally, lifelong skills. So I've mentioned some of the things that we've done around training and for people already in the industry. We do partner up with Nesta on their mentoring network. So there's 2 points of the year where applications are open for companies to be mentored or to be a mentor. I really highly encourage it. Mentoring is so important. I treat it like therapy. It is really important to help you understand how to scale. But we also run the Video Games Ambassadors scheme, which is a network of volunteers from the industry who go into their local schools or colleges to do anything you want about games. It's so important to get in front of young people. They have no idea there's an industry that exists in this country. They have no idea that what the careers are. We don't even know what our job titles are. We keep changing them all the time. So we really need to take it upon ourselves to secure our future, go into schools and tell them about what you do. It's so important, it's so fulfilling. And if you can present in front of an assembly of children, you can present in front of anybody. We also started our student membership scheme, and that's really just to help support some of the graduates and some of the undergrads who have no idea. Sometimes they're not even told about how to sell your game or how to get eyeballs onto your game, or that even there's this thing called publishing. They need to know. They might not go down that route, but they need to know about the industry. And of course, next gen skills, where we're really pushing now for computer science to be considered with art, because we need those too. Digital Schoolhouse is a project that we've been doing this year with the Mayor of London funding, and we've got a former teacher who works with us. Basically, what they do is there's 10 Digital Schoolhouse in London. It's a pilot 2-year scheme. They invite local primary schools into their computer room, and the secondary school teachers have been trained in doing workshops using all sorts of different resources to get primary school kids and their teachers excited and interested in what programming is about. So they very often don't use computers. This is a class that is, using different techniques. So they use magic tricks, they use dance to understand algorithms. It is really about getting them excited. And the most exciting thing is when we ask pupils before and after, bless you, before and after going into these workshops, which is a day-long workshop, the boys have stepped up a couple of points in their interest in computer science. The girls have gone from basically 0 or 1 to 5. It is important that we get that diversity of workforce. We've got such a diverse demand of our audience. We need to get diverse people creating our goods who have different perspectives. And it's not just about gender, by the way. So we believe that the tax breaks, computer programming, was just the key to unlock a hell of a lot more shit that we can do. We've got such a bright future ahead of us. We really, really need to take advantage of the tax break. If you haven't put in your application, you're making a game, please do it. The taxman wants to give you money. That's it. Sorry, a couple of minutes over time. But if you've got any questions, we're all contactable. That's us. And please just come and ask any of the team throughout the day if you have any questions. Thank you.